The most intimidating thing when you transition from drawing to painting or from digital painting to traditional is to understand how to mix your colors. Pigments are a very rich and interesting world, but it can be very overwhelming to get into it. And even if you need to make mistakes in order to learn, I think you don't have to make those mistakes in a painting that you actually care about. A great way to learn about your pigments and to get to know your paint a lot faster is to paint color charts. Hello everyone, welcome back or welcome if it's your first time here. My name is Julie and in this video I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about color charts, why I think it's a great painting exercise whether you paint with watercolor, gouache, oil paints, or as I'm going to do in this video, egg tempera to get to know your paint and your pigments. And I will tell you everything you need to know to get started. The main reason why I think painting color charts is so useful is that there is a gap between color theory and actual color practice. What I mean by that is that in color theory you learn that you mix red and yellow and you get orange, and it's nice, it's true, but in reality when you work with paint or pigments, not every red is the same, not every yellow is the same. Each pigment has very different color temperature and properties. Not all of them are as transparent or opaque, and you don't want to get just orange, you want a specific orange to fit the painting that you're making. So doesn't replace practice, and with experience painters get to know exactly their paints, their favorite pigments and which pigments to mix in order to get a specific hue. But when you're starting, you don't have that experience to rely on. Color charts are great for two reasons. The first one is that it's an exercise that will allow you to get a ton of experience in a very short amount of time. And the second one is that once you're done painting them, you have some very nice charts to look at, and I hope you don't have too much of a reflection on this one because it's in a plastic sleeve. But yeah, you get a very nice chart to look at, and when you want to get a specific green you can see which pigments you mixed and do it again. So great exercise. Again, I think it's an amazing one no matter what kind of paint you're using. In this video I'm going to show you the one I did with egg tempera. So I'm working directly from pigments mixed with egg yolk, but you can of course do exactly the same thing with watercolor or with gouache or with oil. It's actually an oil painting exercise, and I will leave a link in the description below to the blog post where I found the exercise. So if you want to make it in oil, you can check it out after the video. For this exercise I made two kinds of color charts. The first one, like this one, is a color chart where I have on the top line all of my pigments. On the top line they're pure, and as I go down they're all mixed with increasing amounts of titanium white. So I can see how titanium white affects each of my colors and how values look like. This is the first color chart, and then I have what I call pigment dominant color charts, like this one. This one is chromium oxide green, as you can see, and for this one it's almost the same process. Here on the left column I have my dominant pigment, so chromium oxide green. On the top line it's pure, and as I go down there is more and more titanium white. And then each of my other columns has chromium oxide green mixed with another pigment. So this is chromium oxide green plus raw amber, here plus burnt amber, raw sienna, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and so on. So I can see how this pigment reacts with all of my other pigments and with titanium white again. The first step to make this is to calculate how many pigments you want to use for the exercise. For me, I used all of the pigments that I own because I don't have many, but if you have a lot of paint, you may want to select the ones that you use the most or the ones that you want your primary palette to be. So you select a number of pigments, and this +1 is going to be the number of charts you're going to make in order to have each pigment mixed with each other. For me, I have 12 pigments, so I have 12 charts that have a dominant pigment like this one, plus one chart that has all of my pigments pure, so 13 charts in total. I have 12 columns in each chart, and I have 5 rows to have 5 different values and 5 different amounts of titanium white mixed into my pigments. You can have more if you want, you can have less if you want it to be a little bit quicker, but I think 5 works great because you can have a middle value and a very light one, and it's nice, it's practical. I'm a bit lazy when it comes to calculating, so to figure out all of my measurements for this, I used Illustrator. I made a canvas the size of my paper, and I tried to divide the space equally and with a number that would be easy to measure with my ruler. So this is 2.75 centimeters, half a centimeter for each margin here, vertical and horizontal, and each square is 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters. I think I have 10 centimeters here on top, and I didn't measure in the bottom because it's not interesting, I didn't need it. And then I went ahead and I prepared all of my charts in advance. I didn't want to have to prepare my paper before I painted, so I did my 13 charts in advance, which can be a bit tedious at first or seem a bit tedious at first, but it's, I think, more time efficient in the long run, and you don't have to do 13 like I did. You can have a smaller amount of pigment and make less charts. Before you start painting, I advise you to add the name of the pigment you're going to use at the top of each column, so you know exactly what is going to go where. And another tip is to sort your paint or your pigments on your palette in the same order as you're going to paint them on your chart. So here I am laying all of my pigments in my mixing surface, which is a glass palette that I'm using. I'm laying my pigments in advance, but it's not paint because I'm painting with egg tempera and I need to mix all of my pigments with my egg binder in order to make paint. I am not mixing all of my paint in advance because egg tempera is a medium that dries out quickly, so it's better for me to mix as I go. So I start by mixing my dominant pigment for the chart and my titanium white, which I will use with all of the other colors, and I worked one column at a time, starting with the purest color square at the top, which has no titanium white, and working my way down to the whitest one with the largest amount of titanium white. The chart that I'm showing you right now is not the first one I painted. I made 13 in total, and I made a lot of progress in egg tempera doing this. So my palette here is actually a lot tidier than it was for my first chart. So if you're also doing this exercise in egg tempera and you find that you need a lot more surface to mix your pigments, just know that it's completely normal and it gets better with practice. So keep going and you will improve, I promise. Painting charts will give you a ton of experience in a shorter amount of time for mixing colors and understanding your pigments, because you will be using all of them and mixing again and again rather than just a few at the start of a painting. Then the last step is completely optional, but I did it because I find it very pretty, is to add a nice title to your charts. If you want to do it the way I did, I used Illustrator again, but you could use Procreate or whatever kind of image software you have to type your text and then reverse it and print it reversed, so you can use tracing paper to transfer it to your chart and have it in the right direction once it's transferred. Or you could print it directly in the right direction and then use tracing paper, and you would have to transfer it twice with your tracing paper. I just wanted to avoid a step, so I flipped it in my software and I didn't have to trace it twice. So when you're done, you have some very nice charts to refer back to when you want to make a specific color and you don't know which pigments to use. I think it can also make a very nice wall decoration for a studio or a studio space. I may display mine. I don't know yet if I have enough space and if it would look good, but I think it's very satisfying to look at and it can make a very nice decoration. If you want to give it a try in egg tempera, here is a link to my last video about starting with egg tempera. You can subscribe if you want to see my upcoming videos about art learning and my artistic journey. Thank you for watching, stay creative, and I will see you in the next one.